Imagine paying $50 for a chunk of land that everyone else is ignoring, then waking up to find a skyscraper sprouting from it. That is the vibe that I get every time I scoop up more XRP at $2 something. So here's the deal that I want to walk you through today. Why a veteran market watcher just compared loading up on XRP right now to snagging a dusty lot in Manhattan back when, horse-drawn carriages were at least cutting ruts down Broadway. Now, stick around, because if you've ever kind of dreamed of being the next John Jacobs Astor, only without the kind of beaver fur-sided hustle, well, this story might just change the way that you look at your crypto portfolio. So I was sipping coffee yesterday morning, half reading headlines, half kind of wondering why my toast was taking forever when 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗓𝗔𝗪's post landed in my feed. Now, 𝗕𝗓𝗪 runs 𝗕𝗢𝗪𝗪𝗪𝐿ions Academy, and he's the guy who doesn't kind of waste pixels on kind of timed takes. He basically said, buying XRP today is like buying Manhattan real estate in the 1800s. Now, my first reaction was, it's a pretty bold claim, dude. But then he kind of rattled off the math, and suddenly my toaster timer wasn't the only thing lighting up. Now, I'm talking like jaw-dropping numbers that make even seasoned holders raise an eyebrow. Okay, so let's just rewind a little bit to late 1700s. Right, picture the Upper West Side, not with kind of cheap bagel shops and yoga studios, but with kind of sheep grazing on rocky fields. In 1790, you could pick up an acre there for around $50. Fast forward a mere 35 years to 1825, and the same acre of land was fetching $400. That's an 8 times kind of pop before railroads, right? And before skyscrapers, before Times Square was Times Square. Now, jump again to late 1800s, and suddenly ordinary lots are hitting 15 grand, while juicy kind of street corner kind of parcels command 50,000. So want an even kind of crazier case? Well, one little rectangle at 67 Broadway ballooned from $12,000 in 1790 to $800,000 by 1889. Now that's a move so big that you'd have to scroll your phone for a minute just to see the full percentage. Enter John Jacobs Astor, fur trader, but he actually turned dirt Mongol. The guy rolled his profits into New York land back in 1799. He just kept doubling down through the 1830s, and by the time that he had died, he was America's first recorded millionaire, worth about $20 million in 1848 money, which is roughly $700 billion in modern holy cow units today. So Astor's playbook was simple: buy what everyone else was calling boring, hold until, or at least hold longer, I should say, than anyone actually thinks is reasonable. And he just let the city grow around him. So 𝗕𝗓𝗪 thinks XRP is kind of sitting in the exact same sweet spot. Right now, the token hovers at around $2.42. It's kind of not pocket change, but nowhere near top 10 crypto kind of bragging rights either. Jump back just 10 years, May of 2015, and XRP was chilling at ½ a cent. To kind of put that into perspective, 20 grand back then could have netted you 3.3 million tokens. At today's price, those coins are worth $8 million. That's a 40,000% return in a single decade. It's not bad for a bet that probably felt as risky as buying kind of swampy farmland on an island that nobody cared yet about. But here is where the Manhattan analogy gets a little spicier. Despite those gains, 𝗕𝗓𝗪 argues that XRP is still kind of pre-grid plan New York. Basically empty plots, unpaved streets, possibilities of stacked to the clouds, right? Now he keeps kind of hammering this idea of kind of picking up at least 10,000 tokens, around kind of $24,000 at current prices. Because, well, the upside in his view, dwarfs the sticker shock, right? Why? It's simply two words: tokenization wave. And look, right? Banking pipes that we trust to move trillions of dollars every day are basically antique plumbing, right? Brass facets, patched with duct tape, and XRP's ledger was built to move value across borders in seconds without the SWIFT bottleneck. So now if we zoom out, analysts think tokenizing real-world assets, everything from stocks to real estate deeds to carbon credits, could balloon into an $18 trillion market by 2033. So if XRP becomes the glue holding that plumbing together, suddenly those crazy price predictions like $100, even $1,000, doesn't actually sound like Reddit fever dreams, right? They actually sound just like math. Okay, so let's run the math the way that 𝗕𝗓 probably kind of scribbled numbers down on the back of a caravan napkin then, right? Grab 10,000 XRP at today's kind of $2.42. It will cost you roughly around the kind of $24,000, right? Now, if the coin tags $100, you're sitting and staring at a cool million, right? 43 times your money, right? Now, if lightning kind of strikes twice, you could of course hit $1,000, and you're kind of staring at $10 million, a kind of 44,000% return. That doesn't just set you up for early retirement. That's the buy the block and name the coffee shop after your dog kind of wealth. But, and it's a big but, because critics love to jump in right here, they kind of wave market cap charts like angry traffic cops, right? If XRP hits $100, the market cap jumps to nearly $10 trillion. That's 3 times the entire crypto space today. $1,000, $99 trillion, more than the value of every gold bar ever dug out of the earth. And well, it's kind of a fair check, but also something that doesn't really stack up either, because valuations, they do matter, but, and this is an important one for all you critics out there, liquidity matters more, right? Manhattan teaches us that what looks absurd in year 1 can feel inevitable by year 50, right? People thought that 𝗕𝗓 was absolutely nuts, right? Paying double for kind of, pasture land. Now, within one lifetime, that pasture sat, under skyscrapers. And so here's the twist then, right? Crypto years are dog years. Adoption curves move fast. And when I moved some dollars through a traditional wire transfer last month, the bank told me 2 business days. Meanwhile, I sent XRP across the planet in 4 seconds flat. That is faster than my fridge can pour kind of filtered water. And if big institutions decide that speed and cost savings beats, creaky legacy rails, well, demand for XRP could flood in almost overnight. And remember, right, supply isn't infinite, right? Roughly half of the 100 billion coins are already out there. The rest locked or unlocked on a schedule slower than maple syrup in January. Still, I'm not here to sell you hopium with extra foam. Risk is real. Regulators can tighten rules. Tech can evolve past today's frontrunners. Plenty of can't lose schemes have lost spectacularly, right? Now, that's kind of why any kind of comparison to Manhattan in the 1800s has to acknowledge the plot holes or potholes alongside the potential penthouses. So let's talk about the biggest pothole first then. Can XRP legitimately replace or coexist with SWIFT? Well, SWIFT processes around 40 million messages daily, but doesn't actually move money, right? It just sends instructions, right? Often leaving funds trapped for days in correspondent accounts. Now, XRP's ledger could settle value itself near instantly with, fractions of a cent in fees. Now, banks kind of piloting Ripple's tech reports savings up to 60% on cross-border transfers. That's not just vaporwave, that's actual filled data. Second pothole then, Competing blockchains are lining up for, or at least with their own settlement coins, right? But interoperability isn't a zero-sum cage fight, right? Think about cell phone providers, right, sharing towers. If XRP nails a niche, say high-volume treasury transfers for multinational corporations, it doesn't need to win every lane to kind of book outrageous mileage. Third pothole then? Market cap gravity, right? A $99 trillion valuation. It sounds bonkers until you remember global equity markets sit around $110 trillion, right? Global real estate north of $300 trillion and derivatives quad trillions, right? Even if a sliver of that pipes through the on-chain rails, subdividing into specialized assets, $10 trillion for a backbone settlement layer kind of feels less science fiction and more early draft of the sequel. Now, picture the moment that Asta signed a deed on some kind of muddy acre, right? He wasn't calculating the exact dollar valuation of future skyscrapers. He just saw population growth, right? Port traffic and an economic shift west of the Atlantic. Today, we see digital native millennials kind of inheriting $40+ trillion. Now, an internet of value kind of begging for instant settlement and central banks piloting digital currencies. The tide is coming in and XRP is already kind of bobbing next to the dock. So here's a true story, right? Last month, I had to pay a freelance designer in another country. My bank wanted a $40 fee and an ETA longer than the latest Marvel reboot. So I grabbed my phone, flipped some XRP, and the money landed before I could brew another cup. Now that wasn't just theory, that was Tuesday, right? Multiply that friction, free moment, by a few million transactions per day. And the network effect builds faster than a Manhattan high-rise under a deadline. Now, of course, right, timing is essential question, right? Plenty of people bought Manhattan at the wrong decade, right? Watched prices stall, panicked, and bailed just before the next leg up. Now, crypto cycles do the very same thing, right? They shake out, there's winter, chills, and then sudden springs, right? Now, Farina's push for 10,000 tokens, it isn't magic, right? It's a seat at the, or at least on the ride, with enough skin in the game to actually matter if the fireworks do indeed go off. But you don't have to go it alone, right? If you want daily banter, chart breakdowns, and memes, right? That's kind of roast both maximalists and skeptics, then jump into our free crypto Discord server. There's a link waiting for you in the description down below. It's kind of like having a trading floor in your pocket, minus the clunky headsets and, of course, stale coffee. And when you're ready to execute those moves on an exchange that actually feels built for the future, that's low fees, slick interface, lightning withdrawals, then check out Blowfin, also linked in the description below, right? I've been funneling my own trades through Blowfin for months precisely because I'm done letting legacy platforms act like dial-up modems in a fiber optic world. Okay, so back to Farina's Manhattan thesis. Here's kind of the punchline that hit me, right? It's not just about catching the next 100x. It's about buying exposure to an infrastructure shift that as profound as kind of steam engines or kind of broadband internet. Now, when the dust settled, right, nobody cared what Asta paid per acre. They just knew that he owned the ground beneath a mega city. If XRP ends up carrying a chunk of the world's tokenized value, even a modest stack today could actually be your kind of proverbial kind of deed on Broadway. So what's the move then, right? Some people will dismiss the whole idea, right? Just like plenty scoffed at railroad stocks or .com domains or, yes, early Bitcoin. right? Others, of course, will pour their entire savings and pray. Now, personally, I'm aiming for the middle path, right? Accumulate steadily, ignore short-term swings that kind of make, headlines shriek, and actually focus on whether the fundamentals keep marching forwards. Does adoption tick up? And are new corridors opening, right? Are regulators clarifying rather than just killing innovation? So far, the answer leans a lot more positively. Okay, so let me leave you with this mental image then, right? You're standing on a dusty street corner in 1825 Manhattan. A vendor is, hawking land deeds from a kind of makeshift stall, and passerbys laugh as they kind of riding by in carriages, right? Now, you sign anyway, right? Decades later, someone offers you an absurd sum for that plot because they want to erect a skyline-piercing tower. Now, overlay a digital map, right? Instead of deeds, there's cryptographic keys. Instead of horses, there's fiber optic cables, and instead of carriages, there's global capital searching for split-second settlement. The crowd's still laughing away, but that's only because they haven't seen the potential. If that scene gives you deja vu, maybe, just maybe, Farina's comparison here is not hype, but actually history rhyming once more. And remember, right, Asta? He didn't get wealthy by timing every single top and every single bottom. He simply got wealthy by staying in the game longer than anyone else.